And good morning and welcome back. We have breaking news that we're continuing to follow for you here on CBS News New York. Let's go to these live pictures full. I'm going to put my glasses on, give you an update on this situation of this crane fire that the FDNY seems to be getting the upper hand on right now. You can see they're firing water on this crane fire from the building adjacent. This is at 41st and 10th Avenue. Lots of street closures in the area right now as some debris continues to cascade down from this crane to the streets below. There obviously is a building directly across from that crane where the firefighters are trying to extinguish this fire. This has been going on for a greater part of the last hour right now. Some of the street closures we do want to tell you about. 10th Avenue between 39th and 42nd Street closed right now. 41st between 10th and 11th also closed. There's some talk of some potential evacuations in the area. As I mentioned, there are some debris issues. As you can see, the FDNY continuing to get the upper hand. Let's quickly bring in Glenn Corbett, who's on the phone with us from John Jay, fire sciences expert there. Glenn, thanks for taking a couple of minutes. How tough to fight a fire like this? This is not something you see every day here in New York, in the city where you do see basically just about everything.
Yeah, this is a very unusual situation and probably the most incredibly difficult fire to put out for obvious reasons. Basically, there's no easy way to access what's burning.
This is a vacant building that you're seeing directly next to this crane. It looks as though the FDNY now has the upper hand. You show up on a scene like this, Glenn. I guess the first thing is, A, how do we get water on this fire? What were they able to do as far, I mean, this is kind of marksmanship here. They were at the building across from the crane, just firing the water onto this burning crane.
Right. So the first, of course, the very first thing they're going to concern themselves with is the danger of this complete collapse or of the crane, the top of the jib, or on top of the crane, basically. So they're worried about that. But you're right. The issue is getting water onto it. It's probably, I guess, the motors in the jib itself is the top part of the, or in the where the operator's position is for the crane. Probably the motors, and so getting water on that's really, really difficult. And so, you know, what's going to end up happening is they're using a standpipe system in one of the adjacent high-rises. So they're using the pipes that are in these adjacent buildings, or this particular adjacent building, to basically apply water to it. And of course, one of the issues is that the firefighters up on the roof there really can't get a really good perspective exactly where the water's landing, because there's a great distance involved there, and this is something that they're trying to aim the nozzle so that most of the water that's being, discharged from the nozzle, that most of it, or at least a decent amount of it, ends up landing on the crane itself. So this is a one-of-a-kind kind of situation again, but it's New York, and things like this happen from time to time. But again, it's an incredibly unique and very incredibly difficult situation to deal with.
Yeah, just when you think you've seen everything, something like this ends up happening, and we've got pictures coming in from buildings all around the city of people seeing the black smoke earlier when the crane was fully engulfed, and now, like I said, it looks as though the FDNY does have the upper hand. What is the next step now? I mean, how precarious a situation is it going to be to get onto this crane to at some point dismantle it, and then, of course, figure out how this fire started?
Right. So that's an even just as incredibly difficult situation as what they're dealing with now. They're going to need to send folks up to the top of the crane, basically, and understand what's damaged, and of course the other thing is how they're going to take this thing down now as well. I think they're not going to worry too much about how it started. They're going to be more focused on making sure they can hopefully take it down safely, basically. So this is going to go on for a while because again, this particular crane, of course, the situation presents a collapse danger to those areas around it, basically. So we should expect for a while here now that this area may be isolated and cut off until they can actually get in there, understand exactly how much damage has been done structurally to the crane, and then figure out, okay, how they're going to basically remove it and take it down. So there's a lot involved here. Again, this doesn't happen very often. This is actually the first one I've ever seen like this, where we've had a major fire like this. So it's going to be a difficult situation going forward for at least, I am sure it's probably going to be at least a couple days here.
You are obviously a fire sciences expert. On a scale of 1 to 10, when you look at these pictures and you see what these firefighters are doing from the standpipe at the building across, shooting this water into the air, hoping they can get at least some of it on the fire, how difficult a task is it? This is like trying to water your lawn from the block away.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. I mean, that's exactly what the problem is that it's not even that the firefighters on the roof, they really can't see exactly where it's landing, so they're going to be using other firefighters, along the side of what's going on, and then perhaps in other buildings, perhaps using the drone. I don't know if they've got it up or not, but just to try to figure out, okay, how to lift or move the stream so they actually put water on it. I think the other part of this, too, is that at some point, this thing's going to run out of fuel, basically, to burn. So maybe a combination of the water and the reduction amount of fuel here will probably play a role. So, but this doesn't happen typically, and of course, obviously, if the motors and things are at ground level, this thing would be put out in a few minutes, but because it is so high in the air and so far away from these other adjacent buildings, it just makes it an almost impossible task to try to deal with this.
Yeah, pretty incredible scene when we saw it. A 4-alarm fire here, so you've got lots of firefighters that are on the scene right now. As we mentioned, lots of street closures below. We are getting word now of 4 injuries reported. Now, we're not sure if these are, if heaven forbid anybody was on or near the crane up high, or if these are injuries from some debris or water or anything cascading to the ground below. We'll continue to update that for you here. Glenn, again, just kind of as we wrap up with you, having seen this situation play out, seeing how well the FDNY did at extinguishing most of this fire from what it looks like, what's the big takeaway here?
Well, it just shows us, that, in the New York City, that we always have a variety of different kind of problems that the FDNY is going to have to deal with, and this is one that perhaps has been discussed, but I don't think it's ever actually had a fire like this before. So the takeaway for them is that hopefully we'll figure out what happened here and then understand how to perhaps deal with it better. But I don't know there's really any other way of dealing with it other than the way they're handling it right now. Yeah,
you bring up a great point. How do you practice for something like this, never knowing that obviously a crane fully engulfed is going to be the assignment of the day, but the FDNY up to the task for whatever happens, and true to form here, it looks as though they have extinguished this fire. You can still see a little smoke emanating from the top of this crane here, but for the most part, the flames that we saw about 15 to 20 minutes ago, those have been extinguished. Well, Glenn, we appreciate you taking the time for us. From John Jay, fire sciences expert, Glenn Corbett, thank you for taking a few moments, Glenn.
Thank you, Chris.
And what we can update you on, those 4 injuries that I did mention, we are now told 1 injury is a firefighter, 3 civilians were injured. Again, the extent of the injuries we do not know right now, as we again are just kind of keeping you updated here on CBS News New York of this crane fire taking place at 41st and 10th Avenue. You can see the traffic below, tons of street closures at this point because, again, if you had seen some of the live pictures about 10-15 minutes ago, this crane was fully engulfed. So obviously the ground below, a huge concern. The building that this crane is up against is a vacant building right now. So there's no one in the building that we were worried about once we found out the building was vacant. But the firefighters, FDNY, doing an incredible job of using the standpipe at the building adjacent to this crane and literally firing their water cannons across to help extinguish the flames of this crane fire this morning. But you can see the pictures far and wide being tweeted all over from people working in some of the buildings throughout the city, seeing this black smoke rising above the city and then knowing exactly what the issue was to this crane fire here at 41st and 10th. Again, to reiterate, 4 injuries to report at this point. One of those injuries is a firefighter, 3 civilians. Evacuations below, obviously, being done by FDNY, NYPD to make sure people are cleared out best as possible, because now that this crane is in this precarious position of having been on fire here for the greater part of the last hour, who knows what can happen. Safety is obviously the first precaution, as this is a 4-alarm fire that the FDNY seems to have under control. We're going to continue to keep you updated and follow this breaking news story here on CBS News all day. We'll give you an update in about 17 minutes with CBS 2 News at 9 a.m. a.m. with Cindy Hsu right here on CBS News New York. But we thank you for being with us. And again, we will update you as it warrants on this fire on 41st and 10th in Manhattan this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, copy that. Yes, I did. Thank you. Okay, understood, Patty. Thank you. Hi, Madeline. Okay. Okay, got it, Patty. Hello, Guy. Yeah, that's this. I guess the sidewalk along 10th Avenue that it the scaffolding over the sidewalk that it went down on. From what I could tell, but I can't get a complete angle on it. Chris, what we could see overhead is that firefighters are now trying to spray water onto that crane from the rooftop of the building that was under construction. Earlier, they were also spraying water into the crane from an adjacent rooftop. Again, the operation's ongoing, but it does appear that the fire itself has been knocked down. Live in Chopper 2, Jim Smith, CBS 2 News. Fox, Chopper's back with you.